Are you ready? Let it bounce.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Beyond the Chair. I'm your man, T-Rock.
I am Don the Barber.
Today, we got royalty in the building. Let me tell you. Y'all don't even know the half. This man is the architect behind one of the most famous fades in Hollywood, first of all. We'll get into that later. But he's also a titan in the world of barbering and education. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you my man, Mr. James JT Thomas. What's up, Jay?
How you doing, brother?
Good. How you doing, brother?
How you doing
JT.
now? All right.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure to be
Yes,
here,
sir.
man. I
Man,
really appreciate this, you all doing this.
It's awesome, man, just to have a piece of your time, man, to sit down and pick your brain, brother.
Okay.
DJ, I'll let you start off.
It's definitely an honor to be a part of, this as well. And, it's new.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're doing. But let's get to it. How'd you get started barbering?
Well, actually, you and I were talking before the show about generational barbers, like coming from different generations. My grandfather, my father, and my uncle, they were all barbers. And so I personally didn't think I would be a barber. But growing up, I used to cut, kids in the neighborhood. In college, I cut the guys in the dorm.
Right.
Went to school to be an engineer, so I thought I would be doing that.
Right.
And just started some different businesses and failed at them. And so I went to barber school actually as like a second choice of career.
Right.
Didn't really know as much about barbering as I know now. I didn't know the history of barbering, where we came from, that we actually were dentists and doctors and surgeons. And so once I went to school, I actually I began to love it.
Right.
And so once I began to love it, I decided that maybe this is the career that I should choose. And so that's how I got into this path.
And at what point was that when you realized, like, okay, it's not just a job, or it's an actual, like, where were you in your journey at that time?
So I like to tell people anything that I do, that I'm working on, I don't ever want it to feel like just a job, because for me, it's always opportunity to learn. Mm-hmm. So no matter what it is that I'm doing, even from failing at the other, endeavors that I, did early on, the thing is like, what can I learn from that for the next thing that I do to make sure I don't repeat these things that are not, good for business.
Right.
And so for me in the barber industry, I look at it's always an opportunity to learn, being around other people in the industry, just find out what are the new things that are happening. Anything like that I could learn from, what is the things I should be doing for like retirement, or anything that I can learn in this industry. I realize it's not just a job, it's an opportunity to learn something.
Absolutely. Now, I mentioned earlier in the introduction that your claim to fame is you're the architect behind one of the most famous haircuts in ever seen on camera.
Mm-hmm.
How did you link up with Mr. Steve Harvey and become the master of the Steve Harvey line?
Right. So Steve and I actually met in Arlington. So early on in his career, he was actually in town performing at a comedy club in Arlington. And so he came into the shop and said that he was in town performing, and that he had been asking around town who was like one of the best barbers in town. Mm-hmm. And he said my name kept coming up, so he came into the shop one day to get his hair cut. And so whenever he would be in town, he would come in and get a haircut. And then one day he just decided that he wanted to take me to Hollywood with him. And so thus, end up, being his barber.
So what's your method to the madness? Like when you cut a head, what you do? As far as like the introduction, say I'm new, I'm coming in.
Okay.
I booked you.
Okay.
And I sit down and, hey, let me just get a little tape in and, clean my face up. And, what's the method?
Well, the first thing for me is to try to get a clear understanding of what it is that you're wanting from me. Meaning that, make sure that it's clear and I get a clear understanding, because what happens is I think perception of what a person wants and what the barber gives them a lot of the time is the issue. So I like to take the time to sit down and really understand, like, give them a mirror. I show them different things about their line ahead of time, how their hair shape, type of texture they got, whatever they have. Make sure I get an understanding of what it is they're trying to achieve and if I'm even able to achieve that for them, right? Mm-hmm. And then, give them the expectations and then some of the things they should not expect, based on their hair texture, shape of their head, what have you. So I like to do all that stuff before I even get started.
Little client consultation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And in doing that,
and the biggest,
in doing that on a like I said earlier, on a major scale with a major celebrity like Steve Harvey, what's some of the I guess the things the hardest parts about applying what to working with somebody at that level?
So for me, working in television and film was definitely something I had to learn to understand and also to appreciate. Mm-hmm. So meaning that I'd never worked in television and film before, obviously. Mm-hmm. So getting there, how the whole makeup of the show, how it's ran.
Yeah, because you were on set on the Steve Harvey show.
On the set, actually. That was, so actually getting prepared for the show ahead of time. Being on the set after he's actually on the set to make sure that you maintain anything that he may have. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes certain scenes may actually do things to mess up the hair. Right. Say if it's something to deal with he's tussling with his wife or girlfriend in bed or something, whatever. They might be tussling with one of the guys on there. Yeah. Right. So after that, that scene is over if he's got to be, because it's not necessarily taped in sequence. So what you may see, that scene may come actually after that, right, on the show, but they taped it before that scene. So you got to make sure now I got to go back and, give him the same look that he was before he got into the tussle. So, I had to make sure that you have to make sure that you maintain that look as well while you're on the set. So,
that's a lot. That's highly involved.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's highly involved.
And so it's a lot of expectation, because one thing about, somebody like Steve or any celebrity who is, serious about their appearance is that it's demanding. Like they really want that look, like consistently. Right. And
that's their signature.
That's their signature, along with anything else they may have. Right. Women have the same thing, their hair, their makeup, what have you, So if that's who you are, then you want to make sure that every time you're in front of that camera, that you actually maintaining that look that, that appeals to you first before it appeals to the audience, Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I would have never imagined, I can't imagine myself being on the set and just, every beck and order. Like, hey, I need to look like this. I need to look like this. I need to look like this. Right. I do it, though. Right. But I never seen myself, doing something like that. Right. How old were you when you did that?
I was in my 20s. I would say I was probably around 28 or 29, somewhere around that age when I first started.
So not a young whippersnapper, but...
Yeah, but not still trying to figure out how to maneuver through life. And so it was kind of weird, because when Steve asked me to become his barber, I actually told him no when he asked me. Really? He came to me, he told me, that he really liked who I am, not just cutting his hair, just professionalism that I brought with it as well. Like being on time, using professional products, being sedentary, dressing a certain way, carrying yourself, all those things are things that matter to him, but beyond the cut itself. Right. And so when he came to me, he said he wanted to take women. I told him, no, I don't really want to do that, He was like, no, I'm serious, man. I would want to take you, to Hollywood and be my barber. I was like, nah, I'm not interested. He was like, okay, well, I give you $500 a haircut. I said, nah, I'm not interested, man. I don't want to do it. He said, $1,000 a haircut. I was like, nah. I said, nah, I rather not. I said, I had two, at the time I had two shops too, Yeah. I was married, kids.
It's not work. It's not work.
I was like, I don't want to do it. He was like, $1,500 a haircut. Come on, man. I said, you gonna give me $1,500 to cut your hair? He was like, yeah. And I fly you out. I put you up. All this stuff. Get your cars to drive. I just want you to be my barber. I said, so if you're gonna,
you don't trust nobody else.
I said, if you're gonna give me $1,500, I got to at least talk to my wife. Right. I got to at least see.
You got to consider this.
And be like, wife, hey, look, check this out.
Right. So I go home
and I tell him. $1,500 a cut. Right. And he gonna fly me out.
Right. So
what you want me to do?
What you want me to do? She said, baby, I think that's a good, good deal. So I go, right? So I get out there, then working on the Steve Harvey show. And then Cedric, the entertainer, was on the show as well.
Oh, so you cutting him now?
Yeah, so Cedric was like, hey, man, what's Steve paying you to cut his hair? You know, and I told him, Steve gave me $1,500. He was like, okay, I'll give you $1,500. I was like, what?
For real? But that's how that worked,
That's
though.
how it goes.
That's how it works.
Then it just kept going, man. Then Cedric, then Maryland, then, you know, of course, you know, did the Kings of Comedy, I mean, all that stuff. It was just crazy, man, you know, so yeah.
Looking back over your career, you've obviously accomplished some major things, but outside of the celebrity barber aspect, what are your most proud accomplishments?
Well, a couple of them. One is the book, you know, Steve Harvey Barber Says It All.
Okay.
I wrote that because, you know, I would always have people in my industry asking me questions about how did I get that job? Like I applied, you know, for, you know, CBS,
filled out an
NBC, or whatever. And I explained to them that, you know, I think I got the job. I'm pretty sure I got the job because I was set out to be the best barber I could be. And being the best at anything, you know, people will come looking for you. Whether you're the best, you know, bricklayer, the best lawn person, the best builder, or best car maker, whatever. People will start looking for you. And so I wrote the book to explain to them that, you know, I didn't go apply for that job. It was just the things that I was doing. So I tell people, you don't chase money, you have money to chase you by becoming this person that money will chase. You know, so if you you know, an extraordinary person, or extraordinary, whatever it is that you do, if you're an athlete, whatever, they're going to come looking for you, right? And so for me, I just always set out to just try to be the person that attracts people, you know, for my services by being, you know, one of the best at what I do. And I explained all those things. How my father taught me about whenever you have a task, you know, go above and beyond what is asked of you. You know, don't just do the bare minimum. So, you know, the subtitle was Extraordinary Looking Hair Care, basically saying if you do extra things, it's what really will set you apart from the ones who just do ordinary things.
And you have a hair care product line as well, right?
Yeah, Jason Clare Products, you know, which is also something that I did, which we'll talk about later when we talk about students and what they should do. We'll talk about that. But anyway, so it was one of the things I did. And then also the you know, acquiring the school, give me the opportunity to pour into people the things that I learned over my career, you know, almost 40 years.
How does it feel to take over a school that you went to?
I know,
like
it's kind of
school that you went to.
It's kind of weird, you know, but you know what's so funny about that is this, right? So, you know, I wrote the book and I was traveling around the country and I was touring with the book and I was going to different other schools. And so one of the schools I went to was a guy named Chen up in Tennessee, the millionaire barber. I went to his school. And at the time, Chen had barber and beauty. You know, he had the barber side on one side and beauty on the other side. And so I visited the school, you know, and the funny thing, I almost didn't even go to the school because I went there for Oprah Winfrey's father, who had a school in Nashville, Tennessee, right?
Oh, wow, okay.
So that was my purpose of being there. But then while I was there, my manager at the time, he was like, hey, man, this guy wants you to come by his school to, you know, speak to the students. And I was like, well, no, I don't want to do it, man, because the night before we ended up having to stay in a hotel that we wasn't really happy to stay in because we went there without, you know, booking a hotel. We thought we'd just get there and book one. We ended up staying in a hotel that we were so uncomfortable, we actually stepped in our clothes because we didn't want to get under the cover. That's how bad it was, right? So I was like, no, I'm not staying in, you know. He was like, man, I'll find another school, another hotel somewhere or whatever. And so, you know, we need to go there. The guy said, he'll buy this many books, what have you. So anyway, so I go there, and I'm at the guy's school, and I'm talking to him, and the students excited because I'm there or whatever. And he said, man, you ever thought about opening up a school? And then it just hit me because I remember when I was in college, in Barber College, I said at some point I wanted to open up a school. But I had been living, you know, traveling around the country with Steve, all the things I was doing, I forgot. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so he was like, yeah, man, I think if you open up across the street, you'll shut me down, you know, because he was laughing because students were so excited I was there. But I'm saying that after he told me that is when it made me realize that I said I wanted to open up a school. Right. And so I called the guy that owned Williams Barber College, which is the school I own now in Fort Worth, and asked him if he'd be willing to sell me the school at some point if he ever wanted to retire. And he said, well, no, you know, I got a nephew or something, I'm, you know, handed down to him, and I don't think I want to do that. But he later came back around.
How much you buy it for?
Yeah, he gave it to me, man.
How much you buy it for?
But anyway, so I ended up doing that, and that's one of the things I love now is just able to pour into students, man, who really want to learn, and just trying to show them the way, to be successful. Because, I say that the easiest way to get somewhere is to follow someone who's been there. Now you can get there without doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the easiest way, like for instance, you go home every day. You know the way you go. You know the potholes. Maybe the areas don't go through or whatever. Because you go there every day.
Right.
So I can get to your house easier if I went the way you told me, as opposed to me maybe using my GPS, maybe take me somewhere that maybe, out the way or some other way. So if I was to follow his way, it would probably be easier. So
That's a good analogy.
yeah, so that's
that's
kind
a
of
great. That's a great.
That's a real good analogy.
so I just believe in, me being in and pouring into them.
I got something that's off the.
off the
So
card.
as far as the industry, as far as like when you started and to where it is now, what do you think has changed? Because it's
from what I see,
different.
Yeah.
It's so different.
What I see and what I would like to see more of happen is the professionalism of a lot of it has gone. When you think about who we are, barbers, dentists, doctors, surgeons, the prestige that goes with that. I think a lot of the people in the barber industry has forgotten that. Man, we're supposed to be like the top of the line. Every time you see us, we're supposed to look a certain way, talk a certain way, should be community driven, all the things that, that true professionals do is what we should be doing. I hear people say, it's a hustle, man, or, all these different things they say, which disgrade themselves basically, saying that I don't deserve to be treated as professional. And so therefore you shouldn't get the professional prices and all the other things that go with it.
Anybody that ever said the words, "I treat it like a hustle,"
Right.
You disrespecting
Yourself first.
Yeah, you disrespecting what we got going on. Because
absolutely.
We are a professional.
Right.
Like we are in a community that we service people that need it. Like this not like I get this away for free sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's part of giving back. You should give back.
And I've been a part of this community for quite some time. I take care of my kids. I pay my rent. Like this ain't no hustle.
Right.
This is my livelihood.
Right. This is how
this is not a thing that I just
This
do.
is how you should create your legacy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is what it is.
About.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Like
that's what it
I'm
should be
literally
about.
dropping my nuts.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, I'm dropping my nuts. Like, hey, this the only thing I'm gonna do right now to create something that's that I can be proud of.
Be proud of the tangible
This might
for
like this.
people to
Like,
come.
hey man, shit.
Right.
So, with staying on that same line, right? Let's talk about trends within the industry, then versus now, right? So back in the day, the enhancement game, for instance,
Okay.
right? So,
Right. So on the enhancements, I see a lot of people doing it now. Of course, I like to think that I was one of the first people to do that.
oh, you look for those. Let me.
Wait, hold on. What
on.
was you using?
No, wait. Before
What
we
was
even
you
get to that, for those who don't know, all of the enhancements and the sprays, this the man you got to thank for that.
Right.
This the father of it.
And I did it for a totally different reason. And of course, I know social media, all these things have has evolved since I was on television doing that stuff 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
But we used it for the bright lights on the set.
Right.
Now, for everything you got something negative and positive, whatever that goes with it. And so what happened is because I used the enhancement for the lighting, because what happened, the lights are so bright on the sets, sometimes it would shine through people's hair.
Right.
And make it look patchy.
Right.
Including women. Right. And so we used it for that purpose. Well, people liked the way it looked. So then you got all these companies now, right, that started creating all that stuff because everybody wanted the Steve Harvey line. So they want to mimic that.
Man.
So they came up with all these fibers, all these enhancements, all these things that has happened because of the stuff that I was doing on set to enhance the way he looked on television.
Yeah.
So that has, definitely trend. You got kids that come in these shops now wanting enhancements, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. But social media, everybody thinks that they're
Because everybody got a camera.
Everybody got a camera, so
right
everybody
here.
think they're stars, so everybody want to look like a star, and they see the stars on TV with it, so then they want it. So
Right.
there you have it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What do you think barber students right now, what should they be learning?
I think they should learn. Okay, yeah, I think they should learn. Of course, the regular things. The shaving, the haircut, and now enhancements, right? All these things that you got the units. They do all that stuff,
Right.
and all that stuff is great. It's a way to generate money or income. I think what I really like to see, because I often say, if you want to be successful, the easiest way to follow somebody who's been there. So they need to learn how to earn money, but also how to manage
Take
money.
care of it. Yes,
Right.
sir.
So I see so many people in my industry that I've seen had extraordinary lives and careers and generated a lot of money, right? But they also spent a lot of money. And so what's the purpose? Like if you trying to truly grow wealth, the way you grow wealth is you have income and you have the money that goes out, expenditures, right? So the wealth is right in between there. It's the space in between the money that comes in and the money that goes out. Right. So you have to narrow this gap. Like you gotta open this gap but wider, right? And have less on the end being spent, right? It's okay to get more coming in, but you gotta widen the gap in the middle of the money that you invest.
Right.
Because without that, you can't build wealth. You can't create it. And so I think people hadn't figured out how to do that. They know how to make it. They know how to spend it. They just haven't figured out how to and make it grow. Because see, you just can't, man. Because say if you even just put the money in the bank, right? Inflation eats that up because you lose buying power. So you got $100,000 today. It's not $100,000 tomorrow because now you can't purchase today with $100,000 that you did last year. Right. So you got to figure out, how do I widen the gap? First, you got to take it. Don't just sit in the bank. Yes, you need some emergency funds, but that needs to be a certain amount. Right. The rest of it, got every dollar that you earn outside of that, besides stuff that you had to pay for your house, what all these things to live in.
Expenses, right.
You got to have that money working for you. You got to put it somewhere where it start earning compound interest, and so that it compounds over time. And then if you do that, even if you just do 20% of what you bring in, man, you end up a wealthy person, especially if you do that over 25, 30 years. You know what I'm saying? So young people, if you want to be successful, then stop doing that, right? If you don't want to, then just keep doing what you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
I can tell you from personal experience, man, when I was young, 23, when I first moved to Dallas, when I was 23, I already had my barber license in Louisiana, but when I moved here at 23 and, started, working in the shop, built my clientele up and had minimal expenses because I wasn't married, didn't have no kids or nothing at the time, and just had me to take care of. And I go to work and I knew I was going to make, I go to work on Tuesday. I knew I was going to make, $200-300. So Tuesday night, I go out and spend $150.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know Wednesday I'm gonna go make another 200.
And that's part of what gives them the reason to do that, because you say, well, I'll make another $200-300 tomorrow. Right. But guess what?
But had I invested that,
you would never get that $200 or $300 that you spent that night back though. A friend of mine came to school one day, and he was there, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm getting ready to retire." So he was around my age, which was retirement age. So I said, "Oh, that's great, man." I said, "So you've been taking care of business, He was like, what do you mean? I said, "You've been putting away money over the last few years, so in a position now to retire." He's like, "No, I'm gonna get Social Security." I said, "Okay, so you've been paying in. At least you've been doing that." He said, "No, I turned 65." I said, I got that part.
No way.
But how you gonna get Social Security? He said, "I turned 65." I was like, "Nah, but it don't work like that." He was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "You got to actually put some money in to get money out." He was like, "For real?" Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh man, I didn't know that." And so the sad thing is he's already 65. Right. At the point where he should be retired. Now I ain't saying he can't get out there and make some money and maybe make up, maybe by 75 if he lived that long, right?
Yeah, but that's a lot to put on.
But it's a lot to put on. We get older because the other thing I tell people is that take care of yourself. Like these young people, like you said, we was hanging out and doing all the stuff you do. What you don't want to do, even if you get smart enough to save your money, right? Still save yourself. Like take care of your body, because what happened is, let's say you, for instance, you figure out how to build this wealth, for the next 30 years, whatever, 35 years, you build this wealth. but then your health fails. So then you spend all your wealth taking care of your health. And that's not why you're doing all this, right? The whole idea is so you have this wonderful life later on,
leave something for your kids and
delay, delay that, and just wait until you live a great life to turn around and find out now you got diabetes, you got heart disease, you got all these different things, man, that takes away the quality of life, all the things you sacrificed for over the last few years is now for nothing, So you got to have a combination of both, take care of your health and your wealth balance.
Your health is your wealth.
So I would love to see, young barbers, industry start thinking that way. Yeah.
So
I appreciate that.
with this is the last question. We're going to end on this one. One single solitary piece of advice that you can give to a younger you, young JT.
Basically, a couple of things. One, always do your best, no matter what it is that you're doing. For instance, say you got a job and it's not really paying the money that you want to pay. And I'm just using, say, if you're in a barber, you just working at pro cuts. I mean, I don't want to use something, but anyway, if you just work someplace, you're not making as much money you want to. You still have the opportunity to learn. You may be something you can learn from them. So, and so that is a pay within itself, right? So you might be making $10 an hour, but you're learning things that are worth millions. Does that make sense? Learn how they run their business, learn how they operate, whatever, because at some point that could be you. And so that is your pay as well. So even though you're getting $10 an hour, $5 an hour, whatever it is you're getting paid in, in dollars, but what about in knowledge? So always, make sure that you understand that you're also getting that along with that. So take advantage of that. And then once you get the money, what we spoke of earlier is make sure you take care of it. Don't spend it all. It's not all to be spent. Matter of fact, spend minimum if possible. Widen the gap between what you earn and what you spend. And, build that generational wealth, man. Create that legacy that we all hope to have some point in our life.
This has been another episode of Beyond the Chair TV, where we talk real talk with real people. I'm your man, T-Rock. On behalf of my co-host, DJ, and our special guest, Mr. James Thomas.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
We out.
Let it bounce.